Sometimes we face things in our lives where God asks us to stand up for Him. Sometimes that can be in your local community, and you have to deal with the fear of man. Sometimes it's even within your own marriage. Today, we're going to talk about both of those topics as I interview my friend, Kelly Hansen. Stay tuned. Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of That Kingdom Life. I'm your host, Latoya Lackey. And as I said in the intro, I am so excited to have with me my friend from California, Miss Kelly Hansen. Welcome, Kelly.
Hey, Latoya, so glad to be with you. I know we're on opposite ends of the spectrum, but it's exciting to come together as sisters in Christ and just kind of chat about life. So thanks for having me.
I love it. Thank you. We met when Kelly actually interviewed me on His Glory. As you guys know, our podcast airs there, and we're so thankful for that platform and that reach. And just love her. You're a boy mom, which I'm all about. Love the football, love the sports, all the things. But you own two businesses. You're serving in elected office there in your city. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your story, and just who are you, just to introduce you to our audience.
Awesome. Well, first of all, I appreciate this. I'm usually on your end, on the other side, learning about other people. So it's going to be awkward for me, right? I actually have to talk about myself. That's crazy. But excited to do it because I have a fun story. Really, I was raised, my testimony, I always tell people, it's not super hyper. I wasn't on drugs. I didn't come out of abuse. And so sometimes I feel like my testimony is so boring. But with that, I will say I'm just so grateful. I had parents who loved me, who loved Jesus, who raised us in a Christian home, who were really sports oriented. So, that helped keep us off drugs, right? And so really taught us about Jesus, how to live for Jesus and how to do that in every single aspect of our life, whether we're talking about politics, whether we're playing sports. I'm not telling you I did it right when I was a kid, let me tell you. But we were really taught about Jesus and the heart of Jesus, not just religion, but really having that relationship with Christ. So I'm so grateful for that. I have to say it's boring, sure, but I'm excited that I have that base as a child. And so was raised in just a fun, we're also kind of crude. I mean, we say a lot of funny jokes and had a lot of fun. We all played sports together. I played volleyball, basketball, softball. I was a total jock in high school.
I love it.
Yeah. And then after that, I really wanted to go and explore. My parents were really big on, hey, get out, go see the world, go live in the world. Don't be of the world. Not easy to do, but it's something that we need to teach our kids, especially today. And so I went out. I actually studied abroad in Spain. I went to school in Chicago, totally, different culture from San Diego. I'm from San Diego, by the way. So born and raised, sunflower girl, out in the sun, love the beach, surfing. And so when I went to Chicago, it was kind of a wake-up call, Latoya, because completely different culture. Wow. And I was the oddball out for sure. I remember a couple times it was snowing outside and I was telling my friends, let's go out in the snow. Let's go, and no, they were having none of it. This is the time we stay inside, we watch movies. And so it was a whole new culture. I had to adjust. And I'm so thankful for that time in my life. It wasn't easy, but it helped me adjust in most things that I've gone through in my life since. And then I was able to go and study abroad in Spain. I was in Sevilla, y por eso yo puedo hablar español.
I love it.
And so now I speak Spanish. I lived with a family out there. Talk about another big culture change. And then I'm just giving you it all. I'm just going to tell you the whole story.
Go ahead.
So came back to California while I was in Spain. Actually, I was talking to my current husband now of almost 20 years and came back and we got together. We ended up getting married. Fast forward, we now have 4 boys, raising them very similar to the way I was raised. They're warriors. I will say, I think that now, sadly, we have had to put a little bit more of an emphasis on our political views, just simply because of the wackadoodleness that we're seeing in our world today. It kind of ties in together with our Christianity. And so really that's been a struggle, I think, as a mom, is trying to figure out, how do I keep Christ first? How do we make sure they know Jesus is more important than Republican? How do we make sure that they know that, loving Jesus and loving others is more important than debating them on politics, right? And yet still be strong and still speak the truth. And so, mom of four, I actually became a campaign manager for a running U.S. senator during COVID, very randomly, Latoya. I was just a mom. I was literally just a mom running my own business. We do a CPR training and certification. And I got asked to be a campaign manager. So ended up traveling up and down this beautiful state of California, meeting incredible Christians who love this state, who want to bring it back and restore it to what it once was. In God we trust. And so it was really enlightening, and it was really encouraging to go out and meet. They were Republicans, conservative Republicans who love Jesus in this state, you guys, in the state of California. We have incredible people who want to bring sanity back. And so that was an incredible experience. After that, I decided to run for office here locally in my small town, Fallbrook, California. And so I'm actually on the Fallbrook Planning Group. My husband ran for office as well. He is on the elementary school board, and he's a firefighter for LA County.
Yeah.
And so we're busy. We're just, that's it in a nutshell. That's life. But we have a busy, but a really, really fun life, Latoya. So
I love that. I love that. So, okay, we got to back up just a little bit. How did you make the leap to, okay, I'm actually going to roll up my sleeves now and get involved in because that seems scary. To a lot of people, that's intimidating. It's, you don't know what you're getting into, what are the wolves out there going to happen, all the things. So how did you go from, I was just a mom, which just a mom is never just a mom. It's an amazing thing to be. But how do you go from being a mom to, again, being exposed to this world, but now I'm going to throw my hat in the ring, and my husband is throwing his hat in the ring.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah. And it was a progression, like you said. What really happened, and I'll get a little controversial here, so some people may not like it, but we absolutely were against everything that was coming down the pike during COVID. So our kids were being masked. Keep in mind, my twins, 4 boys, right now they're the ages of 15, 13, and the twins are 10. So at this time, my twins were going into kindergarten. This was a very essential year for them to start to learn those basics. Of course, we taught them things at home, but this was the year that they were going to learn so much. And they ended up being on a screen, and they ended up being masked as soon as they got into school and distanced. And so it was a really hard time for us. We were fighting. We were going to the school board and talking about this and saying, hey, I get it. We're not saying it's not real, just like the flu is real. People die from the flu. More kids actually die from the flu than COVID. Barely, but but a little bit more. And so we were going in and saying, let's protect those who are weak and who have an issue with COVID, but let's open it up to the kids and let them have a regular life. Let's stop shutting everything down for them. That goes for businesses as well. And so we were becoming really vocal. And Latoya, let me tell you something. Growing up in the 80s and 90s, we were totally taught that politics were dirty. Don't get involved. They're evil. And so it was really hard for me to talk about anything. And it wasn't even political. It was COVID, right?
Right.
But it turned political fast. And I used to always tell people I'm more of an independent, or, I'm definitely not a conservative. I'm not crazy. Now I'm like, dude, I am gnarly conservative. Bring it on, right? And so we kind of got into the weeds of COVID and fighting those mandates, especially here in California. I'm sure you guys were watching from a distance, the craziness that ensued during that time. So we just got busy. We said, you know what? We may be tired. We got 4 boys. We're busy with our business. Like I said, my husband's gone all the time as a firefighter. He's a hero out there fighting fires and saving people's lives as a paramedic. And but we didn't care. We knew that our kids' future hung in the balance,
Mhm.
and we knew that we could do something about it.
Mhm.
And we didn't want to wake up one day and our kids say, what is freedom? I don't know what that is. Living in communism.
Yeah.
And we said, yeah, we just didn't think it was a big deal. We didn't get involved because we didn't think it was a big deal. And so we knew that our kids' future mattered. And so we stepped into the ring. And like you said, yeah, it was scary off the bat. You don't know what wolves are out there. But honestly, Latoya, we had so many incredible Christians who surrounded us with their support, their love, their encouragement, their prayers. And so it made it a really, really easy transition for us to get involved politically. And now just to serve our community, it feels pretty amazing. So
that's awesome. So many people want an easy life. Like as you're sitting here talking, I'm just thinking about the resilience and the thick skin that it takes to do some of these things that you've had the honor and the privilege of being able to do. But so often it comes at us through adversity. And so, when we have this easy life, guys, I know, people are like, oh, I don't want to go through anything hard. Well, in the hard times is actually when you find out what you're made of. That's actually where you find out what your principles are, what your values are, what you're willing to stand up for. And like you guys were willing to stand up for your kids, you found that an important factor, obviously, which of course it was. Talk to me about that resilience, because that's one of the things I noticed about you. First off, we've only had a couple of conversations, but I'm like, she's a tough chick. I like her. I mean, I could just tell, like, I don't know if that's proper to say or whatever, but like, I could just tell. I was like, she's resilient, no holds barred. And I like that about you. So just talk to me about that resiliency. Like, where did that come from and how's the Lord helped you in that?
Well, first of all, I appreciate that. And just so you know, anytime you call me a stud or anything like that, I know my friends are always like, Kelly, don't call me a stud. I'm like, but you are, and it's rad, But yeah, I will say this. I give so much credit to Jesus Christ, because my husband and I, and I'm going to say through my husband, because my husband and I, when we first got married, we had an incredibly hard marriage. And I can't tell you, this is actually a funny story, but my husband would pull me aside. I look back and we laugh all the time and say, you know what? You can't leave me. Okay. Because like I wanted to leave him, Latoya. That's how I was such a brat. I was such just an innocent, naive princess, when I first got married. And my husband would be like, well, too bad. You can't. You said before God, before our friends, before our family that you're not for,
You're stuck.
For better or for worse. And this is the worst, but we're going to get through it. Praise the Lord for my husband, because he taught me resilience even then in the beginning of our marriage. He strengthened me. I would say that I became a different person. I was not thick-skinned. I absolutely, and to this day, I'm really not. I mean, I have to ask God just to help remind me that if I'm doing what's right, it doesn't matter if people like me, That's really hard for me to do. I want people to like me, Latoya.
Yes.
But if I'm doing what God calls me to do, look at Jesus, people did not like Jesus to the point where they killed him.
Yeah.
So we need to remember that when we go through trials, that you're probably doing something right. Number one, if your kids are mad at you. Number two, if other people don't like you, you're probably doing something right. Now, check yourself if everybody hates you and if everybody thinks you're crazy. Find out what that common denominator is. And if it's you, maybe take a look inside. But in this case, I really feel like God used my husband. He is such a strong man. He is such a leader, a spiritual leader for my boys, a spiritual leader for me. And, he's all about, do what's right, no matter the cost. And, and that happened with whether we had to pay taxes or we had to tithe or whatever it is that we're doing, or we're filling out an application and you could just fib in this little area and you'll get the job. No, and he's always been so strong for me. And so through all of this, I will say having him, having my family, knowing that I'm loved by a core group of people, it really didn't matter what other people said about me out in the community when I know in my heart what I'm doing is right. And when I know that the only thing I want to do is to serve my community. So was it tough? Yeah, absolutely. To this day, I'm not a huge social media person. I really don't like to put my neck out there for people to criticize me or hate my guts. But behind the scenes and always, within my community, I'm pretty bold these days about where I stand, what I believe, and protecting these kids.
Yeah.
So.
I love that. And I feel like, it's interesting that you mentioned that about in your community versus social media, because I feel like, I know me personally, I feel like I'm coming up on this threshold of where the things that I've said within my community, I'm going to need to say more publicly.
Mhm.
And I'm anticipating what that's gonna, reverberate, what's gonna bounce back. And so it's interesting. So you're actually inspiring me a little bit right now. Just want to let you know that, like, okay, like as long as my community is cool and we're good, because it is a fear of man, right? I mean, talk to me about that. Like, how do you navigate? Because you live, like you said, you live in a primarily blue state. Here you are, conservative Christian. You have a radio program, you've got the TV show, you're volunteering in your city there, as an elected official, and all of these things. But you're surrounded by what would seem, at least from my Tennessee viewpoint, what would seem, people that are going to be opposed to you all the time. So talk to me about that fear of man and how that plays in with you.
Well, first of all, that is huge. And it's something I talk about all the time, is that I personally, and I'm going to speak just to myself,
Mhm.
I most days have a bigger fear of man than I do of my creator.
Mm.
And it's sad to say, it's something I have to pray about, dig into my word every day just to remind me, oh my gosh, stop. Like,
Yeah.
we should fear God. That is who we should fear. We don't fear man. Again, and I'm going to say all this, but I also, I have friends who are so bold to the point where they push people away. And I
Mhm.
think, we can also be loving throughout the process. So there is a balance. It's a hard balance to find. But I do try to find that balance of how do I always do everything in love? And I obviously strike out and I fail on this. But when I go into anything in prayer, I try to seek the Lord and say, please speak through me, because Lord, I'm angry, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And that helps. But yeah, having that knowledge each day, saying, I'm going to fear the Lord more than I fear man,
Mhm.
is so important. And like you said, it's one of those things, you have to have friends in your life who, number one, speak truth to you. I have friends in my life who say, you know what, Kelly, for real, you're not being bold enough. You have a platform
Mhm.
and you can use it, and you can use it in love. I know that's your thing, but you need to be more bold in truth and speak out against churches who are not speaking truth, or speak out against politicians who are not speaking truth, whatever it might be. And that's really hard for me. And it's something that I constantly pray about, that, like you said, if you're looking to actually get more bold outside of even your community,
Mhm.
people are going to comment. People are going to say things. People are going to make fun of your appearance even. People are going to make fun of the way you talk. I mean, people are going to get really dirty about it. And you have to know in your heart that you're doing what's right. And you also have to have people who love you, who can say, Kelly, you're not bucktooth. I know they said that, but you're not, or whatever it is, right? So you just constantly have to have people in your life who are there to encourage you. And really, it's so crazy though, Latoya, because I always tell people, I want to go back to the 80s or 90s, because I wouldn't have to speak out. We didn't know any of this was going on. Our
Yeah.
kids seemed safe, but we can't anymore. We can't stay
Mhm.
silent. We have to, as Christians, as believers, we're not just asked to, we are called to. We are called to speak truth and to protect the young ones. That is biblical. And so, just being biblically minded. I don't know if that answers your question, but absolutely, I think having that core group and remembering that you are a child of God, it really does help you be bold.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and one thing that we see, like you said, I mean, we would all love to go back to the 80s or 90s when, you could just run down the street with your bike. You didn't have to worry about all the things. But the reality is we are in a very fast changing world, and I think especially for Christians, as we're moving through this, the influx of AI, everything's changing. Our jobs are changing, our lifestyles are changing, how we communicate with each other is changing. Our circle is getting smaller and smaller because of, proximity. We've gotten used to communicating online, but we're not hugging each other and sitting down at a dinner table and having all of those things. And that does build connection, but I think it's part of that as well is just, like you said, knowing what you believe and being able to articulate it and to speak out. And when Jesus aggravated people, it was mostly the religious people, but he, even still, it was like everybody that the church, quote, quote, would look at and look down on, he was showing love to them. And so there's a nice little tension that I think has been bubbling to the surface in between us being able to show love to people and the church wanting us to speak truth to people, like truth isn't love or love isn't truth. And so they're not really two different things, but there is this tension. So I'm rambling, but
no, I love it.
I love that, of just really knowing and understanding what you believe so that you can speak up and having the boldness to do that and having your community to be a sounding board off of, I think is so important there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that also having that, when you are equally yoked in your marriage and you're able to really pull from each other and have that connection. I mean, my husband's my best friend. We do everything together. We love the same things. We just are constantly talking. Everybody at the station makes fun of him. We're always on the phone talking about random whatever. And so to have that base is really important. And if you don't have that, if you're not married, or if maybe you're going through trials in your marriage, I just encourage anybody, definitely, if you're going through trials in your marriage, get counseling, because I'm telling you, don't live your life distant from your spouse.
Oh my God.
Let's get as close as we can. I'm of the assumption where I'm like, why not be as happy as we can? I think God is okay with that. He wants us to be content. And I'm telling you, it is a roller coaster. It is a cycle. It's never perfect. It is dirty. It is ugly. But if you need counseling, get counseling. I know that's kind of random. I just threw that in there, but I will say, I think that having that core base, and whether it's a best friend, whether it's your mom, whether it's your dad, whether it's your brother, siblings, or if it's a spouse, find somebody in your life who not only is going to be there for you, support you, love you through the ugly, but who seriously will speak truth to you. Because I think that's been huge in my life. That's been the best way that I've grown, is iron sharpening iron. And when you can have that conversation with good friends and say, hey, I really think that you're failing in this area. Look, you're amazing. Don't get me wrong. I love you. You're my favorite. But this I see as a fault, and vice versa. Oh man, you're going to grow so much, and God's going to do big things in your life.
Yeah, I love that. I want to explore that topic a little bit more. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about that core circle, and maybe even talk about our husbands a little bit. Just saying. So come back and join us here in just a moment at TKL. Hi, TKL family. Thank you so much for watching That Kingdom Life. Part of our mission here at Latoya Lackey Ministries is to help people understand hope, identity, and freedom. So we not only want to equip you with good, sound biblical teaching, but we also bring in people to have conversations, interviews, topics, all of the things. Now, this is a listener-supported podcast. What that means is that we don't have sponsors. We're not getting paid from other avenues. So I want to ask you sincerely, will you consider partnering with us? Not only are you going to help us to bring good content and quality to this show, but also your money goes to help support other things like the furtherance of the gospel. We have 4 trips planned overseas this year, and we are going into places where they can't afford to pay us to come. We're having to pay our own way. It's a missions trip, right? And we are going to equip leaders in churches. There's church planting happening. We're also going to do a couple of kids camps this year. And this is all in conjunction with a ministry friend of mine as well. And so we are, spreading the gospel, and we're doing the things that Jesus has told us to do, to train up, to empower, to equip, to release disciples making disciples. So will you please consider becoming a partner with Latoya Lackey Ministries? You can do that by going to latoyalackeyministries.com/give and become a monthly partner, or sow a one-time gift. If you want to give towards missions, you can put a note in there for that as well. But every dollar helps, and I would so appreciate it. And I know that we are furthering the gospel together. Guys, welcome back to TKL. I'm here with my friend Kelly Hansen, and we stumbled on the topic of marriage and husbands before we went to break. And so, Kelly, I want to dive into that. Chris and I have been married for 30 years this year, which seems crazy town. I know. I got married at 17, y'all. I was not pregnant. I did not marry my cousin. I just live in Tennessee. That's what we do, okay? But like you, our marriage started out really really, really rough. And so I would like to maybe let's explore that topic and give some people a little bit of hope on what can happen, because I'm like you, we've lived the life of the bad marriage without God in the middle, and we've lived life with the good marriage with God in the middle, and it is night and day difference. So tell me a little bit about you and your husband's story.
Yeah, well, and you brought something up, having God be in the middle. I would say that we started our marriage thinking that's what we were doing. We both loved Jesus, but I'll tell you what, God was not in the middle of our marriage. And we had separate relationships with Christ, but we did not bring that into the middle of our marriage. A lot of times I know I hear a lot of counselors and speakers talk about how it should always be there stemming down, right? It should start with Christ. And then no, that was not how we were. We were bouncing off each other. We were angry with each other all the time. We literally brought out the worst part of each other. I would get angry and scream and say horrible things. I was really witty and good with my words. So man, I could just whip him with threats and anger and diss him and really, really tear him down as a man. And it was really horrible looking back. It's one of those things where I was always mad at him because Latoya, I felt like it was his fault. He brought out the worst in me. I was never this way to anybody. I was always happy, always nice. And like I said before, just completely naive to the fact that I was selfish. I was narcissistic. And it was a really tough transition being married. We were 22, so not as young as you. And we actually waited 4 years to have our first kid. So we knew we were kids still. We knew we needed to work things out before we brought kids into this marriage. But man, we struggled so much. And when I look back at that period of time, it gives me so much hope for my friends. And I'm so grateful we went through it. Because I can't tell you how many times I talk to my girlfriends and they tell me about their marriage. And don't get me wrong, I'm still telling them about mine. Okay, we are not perfect. But I talk to them and I'm like, yep, my husband did that. Yep, that's, and they say it in a way that almost, I want to speak to this a little bit if you don't mind, but they say it in a way that they're almost abusive, that these men are abusive. And unfortunately, ladies, they're not being abusive. They're not even trying to neglect you. They are so simple, and they really are. They really mean it when you're like, what are you thinking about? And they're like, nothing. Like, they really are thinking about nothing. It's crazy. It still blows my mind. But they're simple beasts. They're simple beings. They don't understand our intricacies, our needs. We have to tell them. And it's so annoying. You want them to read your mind because that's love, No, that's not love. That's fairy tale. Stop watching those movies. I'm kidding. Still watch them because they're fun to watch. But don't think that's reality. Stay in reality when it comes to these men and really talk to other people, and you'll understand that these are just men and we're women and we're so different, and understanding those differences is so important in your marriage. And one of the things that we don't have to dive into, but I would just encourage people is I really enjoy the Enneagram. And if you read a book called The Road Back to You, it really helps you understand each other's personalities. So for my husband and I, for him to understand that I'm a 7 and my crazy tendencies and why I do what I do, what makes me tick, what makes me feel loved, he can understand me more and not be angry with me when I do those things or think that it's, a threat against him. He'll know that it's just me. It's nothing to do with him. Yeah. And then for me to know that he's an 8, if you know what that is, he's like a very strong personality. He's always right. Let me tell you, he is always right. But knowing that and knowing that it's not against me, that he's not doing these things to hurt me. He's not doing these things intentionally. This is just his personality. So really finding what works for you as a couple is so important. But I really want to speak to most women right now listening. Your husband he could be abusive. Don't get me wrong, but more than likely, he's not emotionally abusive. More than likely, he just doesn't get it. And he's not going to get it unless you go and get counseling and he hears it from somebody else. He's probably not going to get it unless he has a relationship with Christ and he's open to hearing truth and understanding who you are as a woman. But I think it's our job as women to also continue to respect them, to continue to show them love in the ways that they want to feel loved. To try to understand them and to go that route first. And a lot of times that's going to bring them around to want to love you more and understand you more. And it could take many years.
Yes.
Stick it out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Stick it out. I mean, because for us, I know it was the first 10 years of our marriage was extremely difficult. And about 3 years in is when I really got into church and started praying for him. And it was 7 years of fasting and praying and just, really fighting on the altar for him, and I mean, he loved the Lord. Like, I think if he would have died during that time, he would have gone to heaven, but our marriage was not good. It was miserable. And there was a lot of back and forth. And some of the things that God told me during that time was one night I was crying in front of the toilet. I'm on the floor and I'm like, God, why did you give me this man? I was, pointing the finger of, Lord, this is not what I was up for. This is, and I heard the Lord very clearly. And he said, quit talking about my son that way.
Mm.
And he was like, would you like for someone to talk about your son like that? Wow. And it hit me so hard because Kelly, up until that point, like I would get on the phone every day with one of my best friends and we would gripe about our husbands for an hour. Yeah. Like we would do nothing but tear them down. Girl, guess what he did? And oh my gosh, and all of that mess. And the Lord told me, he's like, stop talking about my son like that. Oh. And I remember standing up in the middle of my bathroom floor, Kelly, and I looked in the mirror and my face is all just, red from crying and everything. And I was like, you know what? I'm done. Like, I'm done focusing on that. And so I stood right there in my bathroom and I remember it like it was yesterday. It was 20 years ago, but I remember it like it was yesterday. And I said, Lord, I choose to see what you see when you look at him. I may not even like what I see when I look at him. I may not even just want to, give him a glass of tea, I mean, I just want to, but I was like, I choose to see what you see. I don't see the socks on the floor. I don't see the anger when he comes home from work. I don't see that. I'm like, he's a man of valor. So I started focusing on what God saw in him. And I started speaking those things over him. He is a man of valor. He is a man of integrity. He leads our home. He's a good father. He's a good businessman. I mean, he takes our family to church, all of the things and over and over and over. And, I can tell you, I mean, it was 7 years of not seeing anything. What happened during that 7 years though, Kelly, was God started to work on me. Yeah. He was working on me to make me the wife that was worthy of the kind of husband I was praying for. Amen. Because I was praying for this husband that was all of these amazing things, right, but I wasn't the wife that was even worthy of a husband like that, honestly. And so it was like, as God started to change me, he began to soften my husband's heart. And he'll even tell you that, because there was one night that we were arguing and I remember I opened the refrigerator and the Lord was like, go take him a glass of tea. And yeah, and I remember standing there in the refrigerator and I said to the Lord, I said, Lord, if I have a glass in my hand, I'm liable to slap it upside his head and watch him bleed. That's what I said. Because I'm ready to fight. Like, take my earrings off. Here we go. Like, and he was like, are you doing this unto him or unto me? Oh. And I was like, because I love you, not because I like this man right now, but because I love you, God, I will take him this tea. And I took him the tea. And he'll tell you even now that he remembers that night and he remembers me bringing him tea with a sincere heart of not that God was making me, but just, honey, can I get you anything else? That kind of thing. And it literally, you talk about leaping coals of fire on his head. It melted his heart because he knew he was being a jerk right then. And he knew I could have been very justified if I would have thrown the tea at his head instead of handing it to him. But it melted his heart because he knew I wasn't doing it for him. He knew I was doing it for God. Wow. And he knew. And so that it begins to change things when we can begin to esteem our husbands. Because ladies, let me tell you, when you're focused on the negative, that's what's going to grow. Yeah. When you focus on that, that's all there's going to be. So we didn't do the Enneagram, but we did do the DISC profile, the DISC. And we found out we were exact opposites. Like, there's 4 things and I'm 2 and he's the other 2. Exact opposite. And that does help. I mean, it helps when you start to see, like, what is my husband's love language? What does he need from me? And it helped him to know my love language, And so talk about that, about like, what do you think is what do you think holds us back as women? Let's just go here. What do you think holds us back as women from loving our husbands in a way where we don't lose our own identity,
Mhm.
but that we are honoring to them? What do you think holds us back from that?
And I'll tell you what, this is a struggle that we as women have now. I don't think that this was a struggle even decades ago. I really think that we knew our place. We had more of a biblical view on
Mhm,
marriage. And women didn't feel that they were being held down by not
mhm,
having a job and taking care of the kids and cleaning the house. And
mhm.
now we're kind of expected. I want to go strangle those feminists, right? But no.
I know, right? I'm like, can we just not I think I was like, "God, I know you're gonna have a line for me to kick some women in the shin," because, I mean,
This is
excuse
what
me, I can hold down a job and clean the house and do the dishes, and anyway, I'm
right.
glad you
And
brought
now
that
we're expected to. That's the crazy thing. And
up.
we're also expected to feel that we are not complete if we're not helping financially in our home. And so it's a very, very different time now. I was talking to a friend and even non believing friends who really do feel like, why am I married? Like, I make money. I
Mhm,
clean the house, I cook, and then I have to perform things with him. Like, I'm
mhm,
exhausted. And it does feel like, why am I even married? I think that it's sad that we've come to that point in our culture where we don't really even know our roles anymore within. I don't think the men know, and I don't think the women know. I think it's a really hard balance. And so for us, I would say for women, especially, just kind of what holds us back, it's really our thoughts. It really starts with our thoughts. And our thoughts will transition our heart. And
mhm,
so when you start to think really, poor things about, like you were just talking about, oh my gosh, he's a deadbeat. His socks are all over the
mhm,
place. He never does laundry. If you change that and you're like, man, he's such a hard worker, he's such a good spiritual leader for my kids. And you change that rhetoric in your own head, that starts to change and soften your heart towards him and to see kind of his side. There's so many times that I go, man, I'm so mad at him. He didn't help. He didn't do this. But what's his side? What is he doing? What is his heart thinking right now for him not to be here to help me pack and clean the
mhm,
house and, get us ready for vacation or whatever it might be? And, sitting him down and talking to him about that and knowing what is his heart. He felt that, he needed a break. He deserves a break. He's been working 6 days straight, whatever it might be. You start to understand each other. And so I would say it definitely starts with your thoughts as women, because our mind is constantly going. We're just thinking 5 million things. Grab a hold, stop it, grab a hold, and change it, revert it to the fact that that he's a good man. And he may not be a good man. Maybe you need to really stretch and
mhm,
find some decent things and qualities. But like you said, that will start to grow when that is your intention, when that is your thought process. It will show in how you treat him.
mhm,
And really, he will, like you said, where you wanted to become the woman that you deserved this type of man. If
mhm,
you become that woman for him, he's going to want to change and be that man for you.
mhm.
More than likely. I don't want to make promises. Hopefully, God's involved in that process as well. But
And
um,
it is a matter of it's becoming the woman that God wants you to be.
yeah,
And then it's like there's that reward on the other side. And it does involve them and it is their free will and all of that. So I'm not trying to create an exchange, that's going to happen like magically all of a sudden you're going to have this amazing husband. But I do think there's a difference between, like you said, I mean, watching the Lifetime movie of the week or this or Hallmark movies and things like that, and you get all of these pictures of what a man is and what a man should be. And that was one of the things that drew me into church, when I'm sitting there holding my son and I'm like, he's not going to be like the men that I've encountered in my life growing up. He's going to be a godly man and a godly husband. And that changed the trajectory of everything, raising a son even. So, and you've got 4 of them that you're raising. So talk to me about that. Like how does your marriage play into how your sons view marriage or how you think that they're going to view marriage?
yeah, absolutely. And I will say this too, because you brought up a good point. I don't know about you, but watching my kids, watching boys I'm sorry, do stupid things all the time. I'm like, oh, okay, you were born like this. You didn't develop these things as a man, right? And in that way, it kind of endears me to my husband even more because of how much I love my boys. But we've really made it a priority. It was a pastor who told us once, and it's kind of a crazy hypothetical. I don't even like to really use it because most people think it's so heartless. But he was talking about, if your wife is drowning, your kid is drowning, who do you save? And he was saying you save your wife. And a lot of people are like, what are you talking about? Of course, you are on your own. You've already lived your life. I'm going to save my kid, right? And so it is a weird analogy. But when it comes to your marriage, it's a huge plus. If you will put your marriage first, your kids will feel more loved. If you put your kids first, they will feel less loved. And so it's a crazy thing that you have to wrap your head around.
Oh, good. Say that again so everybody at home can hear that. Say that again.
Yeah, I was saying, if you love your spouse first, your kids will feel more loved than if you love your kid first, they will feel less loved. They need to know that they are secure. They need to know that their parents are so in love. It's such a security blanket for them that they can now roam free in life. They can feel free to be who they want to be because there is security at the top in their life. Yeah. And so when you really want to love your kid, when you're thinking, gosh, and I know moms have this struggle, I really want my kid to sleep in the bed with me. I'm not saying that's wrong, but I'll tell you what, if that is inflicting pain on your marriage because you can't be intimate with your husband, then you need to kick that kid out. You guys need to become intimate together in your bed. Make that sanctified. Because your kids are going to benefit. So if you really love your kid, and you want to do what's best for them, work on your marriage. Yes. And that is what is going to be the most loving thing in their life. So that will trickle down. They're going to see that. That's what I saw with my parents. It was such a great role model for me to feel secure, to be confident, and also to understand how to work my marriage. Like I said, it was a rough start, but God worked through it. And I was able to use so many tools that my parents taught me because they had a strong marriage, how to run my marriage in my household. And so, yeah, really focus on your marriage. It's so important. And especially if you love your kids, it's the number one thing you can do to show them that you love them.
It truly is. And, you bring up a point, and I'm just going to say this, and it may be off topic, but it may be on. You just brought up a point. There are so many times that women come to me for counseling, whatever, in ministry, and they're having lustful dreams. They're having, all of these crazy thoughts, and they're like, this is not who I am. I don't understand what's happening. And the next question I ask them is, how is your love life with your husband? Like, what does that look like? And I cannot tell you how many times they'll say, oh, well, we've been in separate bedrooms because he has a CPAP machine, or, or whatever, or, there was allergies in the room and I had to go over. I mean, whatever the excuse is. And next thing you know, 6, 8, 9 months, a year has gone by, and they're not even sleeping in the same bed. They just got used to whatever. And so I want to just give a little red flag to those watching at home. Like, that is a very important part of your marriage. If you have a kid in the middle of the bed, if you have a dog in the bed, if you're sleeping in separate beds because of back pain or snoring or whatever's happening, make that, like, bring that back into focus. Because like Kelly said, when you and your husband are strong and connected together, which often a man's love language is more physical than emotional, guys. Okay. So when that is, always make sure, like, bring that back in. So there's people that I've run across that I'm like, okay, like, my assignment to you is go home and do your business tonight. Like, I want you to call me tomorrow and let me know you took care of business, because you have to have that in a relationship. I think for a man to feel secure. And, one of the things that the Lord also showed me during all of that with our marriage was the Proverbs 31 woman. There's a portion in there in that verse that said her husband's heart does safely trust in her. Mm-hmm. And that hit me so hard, because I'm like, am I a safe place for my husband's heart to land? Are you a safe place for when he comes home from work? Can he tell you his fears? Can he tell you the things that are bothering him? Or are you running and telling it to your girlfriends? Are you a safe place for him to land? Can he tell you the deepest things on the inside of his heart if he wanted to? Is that a safe place? Talk to me a little bit about just the trust between husband and wife and how sacred that is.
Yeah, so sacred, so important. And I want to hit on something first, that intimate part of it. And just like you, I have so many friends who come to me with these issues with their husband. And I ask them, first thing I ask them, how is your intimacy with your husband? How is your sex life? How are you guys doing on that? And I always, Latoya, I hear, well, how am I going to want to do that when he's not meeting my needs? Well, how is he going to want to meet your needs?
Hello.
One simple need that you can meet.
Yes.
And, and I know it stinks. I know that sometimes you may have to start doing it bitterly. I'm sorry. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah.
You may have to just start doing it for him so that he can feel, I hate to say it, and maybe some men are listening and they don't believe this. And so it's not for everybody. Most men, I think, are pretty simple in that respect. If you are taking care of them in that way, in the intimacy level, more than likely they're way more open to taking care of your emotional needs. Yeah. And so, it's a give and take, of course, and you may not always feel like it. And I want you to always feel like it. We want that to be good on both ends, both of you enjoying. But sometimes maybe you don't. And just like he may not enjoy giving you a back massage or listening to you bicker about a friend. He's still going to do it because he loves you. So being that safe place for him and intimacy is just as important as, like you said, him coming home. My husband, especially being a firefighter, he's seen a lot of things. He had a buddy actually blown up right in front of him from a tractor tire. They were just on a normal call. So we've had to deal with a lot of crazy trauma. And always that is, and sometimes I have to stay on him. Hey, we need to go talk. Let's go talk. Do you want to talk? Are you ready to talk? But being that safe place. And like you said, not going out and saying, hey, my gosh, my husband, he's such a wussy. He cried, or whatever it is. Although let's be honest, women, we love that. We'd be like, oh, he cried. But whatever it is, if we're making that a safe space for them and they know they can come to us, and we're going to listen with open arms. That's so important. And so I would say, create that space. And it may start with intimacy, believe it or not. And that's hard for women to understand, but that's where it starts.
I've had people tell me the same thing. They're like, well, I'm not going to respect him. He doesn't deserve my respect. And I'm like, okay, ma'am, I'm sorry, but it doesn't matter what he deserves. You're going to be held accountable for what you give, period. So, because Jesus didn't just love people that deserved it, and so it's like, am I going to be the light of God in my home? Because as women, we are the thermostats. Like, we are not the thermometer. We are the thermostat. We get to set the tone for our home. So if your home is constantly in turmoil, if it's constantly in chaos, you get to set that tone. So are you the safe place for your husband? Are you peace for him? Or does he drive around the block 10 times before he pulls in the driveway because he knows you're going to nag him to death? Like, there's a proverb that says a nagging wife is like a leaky roof. And when me and my husband were youth pastors, I read that one time in service, and he lost it. He busted out laughing. And so from then on, like, all the kids, they would say, don't be a leaky roof.
It's so annoying. Knock it off.
We're a safe place for them, and guys, your marriage may not change overnight. I can guarantee you it usually doesn't change overnight, but what will happen is God will begin to soften your heart to love your husband in such an effective and beautiful way that it does soften his heart. It truly will. So I want to encourage you in that aspect. Anyone that's watching this totally went in a different direction than we were going to talk about today, but somebody out there watching needs to be encouraged in their marriage. So Kelly, as we are finishing up here, we have a minute and a half, 2 minutes here. Just give any last words of advice. If you want to pray, whatever you want to do, just talk to the women that are watching right now.
Yeah. And I was going to say, don't feel discouraged. If you are listening, you're probably not alone. I can tell you 10 people right now, if I wanted to, I can name them off, who are going through it. And I can tell you this, I go through it. There are days where I am in a slump and our marriage is in a slump. So keep working at it. And one of the best things you were bringing up, it'll take time. Like, however, I also truly believe, even if your husband never comes around, or if you're a man and your wife never comes around, right? Living out the purpose that God has for you, and that is as a spouse, being the best spouse you can be, that's going to bring you joy and contentment. Your kids are going to be blessed if you have kids by it. Your friends, people watching will be blessed. It's not always about changing the other person. Sometimes God wants to put you through that for yourself to persevere, for you to grow as a person. And maybe he, is using that right now in your life. I know that in my life, when I was going through that tough time for so many years, Latoya, so many years, and you said so too, like maybe 10, you thought, hey, I think it's getting better. Nope, maybe not, And now 20 years into my marriage, like I said, still a roller coaster, still always up and down, but way more steady than it ever was. And guys, it took 20 years. So you got to keep at it, make Christ the center of your relationship. Make sure that you are always looking at yourself and how you can be better in your marriage. But definitely get some girlfriends. I'm not saying venting is wrong. Just make sure that when you're doing it, it's not in a way just to bash them. It's in a way to help your marriage. So yeah, you need those friends sometimes. You got to say it sometimes.
I love that. Yeah. You need the friend that's going to tell you when to buck up and, like, girl, you were not being a good wife in that moment. You need to go apologize. You need that friend. And those are the ones you vent to. So I love that. Kelly, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for taking time and coming on the show and being a guest. And I love your heart. And I just want to bless you. I just want to pray over you and your kids and your husband and those of you watching. Let's just say a quick prayer. Lord, I just thank you for marriages. Lord, I thank you for the beauty that you designed in the oneness of a marriage. And Father, I thank you that for those that are struggling, that are watching this right now today, Lord, we just ask that you would just shower them with your love and your peace. Give them a vision of the kind of spouse that you want them to be, Lord, whether their spouse ever reciprocates or not, Lord. I just pray that each person watching, as Kelly said, is living out their God-given potential. And Lord, we just bless Kelly. We bless her husband, Lord, at his job and the influence that he has there in the community, and Kelly and with her boys. And Lord, I thank you for godly women that have a voice in this nation and that have a voice within their communities, that are speaking up and standing up for right and for kingdom. And so, Lord, we just thank you, and we just ask you to bless Kelly and her family in Jesus' name. And those watching. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today and joining us next time on TKL. Have a good one.